Welcome, everyone, on behalf of Harbinger Group and me, Shrikant Pattathil. Thanks for joining us today. As people I see are still joining in, let me just play our welcome video.
Welcome to Harbinger's flagship interactive webinar, Power Hour. Select the right speaker for audio output. Test your speaker from audio settings. If necessary, join the webinar using your phone. Use the Q&A panel to share your questions. This webinar is being recorded. Attendees will receive the recording. Let's tune in.
Hey, thanks everyone for patiently watching that intro video. Our topic for today is how AI is redefining digital learning business and how is it possible for us to scale smartly in our businesses. This whole concept of human and AI interaction in terms of getting a new job done is going to be an interesting phenomenon for all of us, whether we are doing the work or running businesses. For example, how can we build content at scale using humans and agents at the same time, and how we can deliver these experiences at scale using these agents in the workflow. So we'll come to all of that. Very quickly, an intro about me. My name is Shrikant Pattathil. I'm the President and Chief Technology Officer at Harbinger. It's been my good fortune for over 2 decades collaborating with senior leaders in the HR and learning domain. Over the span, I and my team, we have built a lot of applications, right from recruitment to retirement. Also built a lot of e-learning courses and solutions that have helped our customers in their skilling, reskilling, and learning transformation journeys. Today, it's my privilege to host this session on AI-led transformation in the digital learning business and ask some very interesting questions to our panelists. And I'm eager to bring them on. However, before that, I think it'll be good to give you a quick context of what we are going to discuss today. So there are many facets about how AI is going to transform digital learning business. The main 3 or 4 things that we are going to discuss today is how important it is that in this journey we move from a role-based skilling to actually a skill-based intelligence, and how we can use that effectively in this transformation. Secondly, we will also talk about what new paradigms in terms of how learners are going to learn or consume this content by itself. The third important aspect, of course, is how do we build content at scale? Today, I think the future, if in earlier days, the lifespan of content was about 5 or 10 years, is that going to be the same over the next few years or decades? Is that going to change? Is our customers going to expect new content to be delivered in weeks rather than months? So how do we change and adapt to all of that? And finally, as learning professional leaders, what kind of changes this is going to bring in the way we build technology or build content? So that's going to be interesting as well for us to see. There were 3 important trends that we wanted to share and base this discussion on. And first and foremost was about keeping the learner at the center. Like, how are they going to learn in future when we are going to bring, all of this agents and, new sorts of way of doing things? Is our traditional video-based content, which was primarily how everybody was learning for the last 15 to 20 years, is that going to get disrupted with new forms? Is that going to become legacy and something else is going to take over? Secondly, from a content building perspective, I'm sure the panelists will have a lot of things to talk about as to how that whole process is going to change and what insights they've seen so far and what's coming up. And how do all of these new technologies or systems come in place together in terms of doing the content creation, delivery of that content to the learners, as well as integrating with various forms of technology or tools, be it in terms of building it or in terms of delivering the content so that it's specific and targeted and as personalized as it can get. So these are the facets which are causing the shift, and we will bring them in during the course of our discussion. And an important trend, and I think it's important for us to talk as to why it's relevant, and for us to discuss this today. Globally, everybody is acknowledging that what the way we did work till 2024, 2023 is going to rapidly change by 2030. So almost, the elephant in the room is, are our jobs going to get displaced, and how many? And are there going to be enough jobs being created or not? So if you look at the positive side, the trend says that, where there's going to be a 92 million jobs displaced, about 170 million jobs are going to get created over the next 5 years. So that's an opportunity. But at the same time, if we are going in with the same skills, then almost 40% of those skills are going to get outdated. Whereas the current workforce needs to be transformed rapidly and skilled and reskilled on different things for them to be able to take on the 172 new jobs that are going to be created. So that's the premise. Of course, different perspectives, opportunity, threat, and we will definitely discuss about those in the upcoming discussion. So on that note, let me welcome both our panelists, starting with Lindsey Padrino, who's the Chief Strategy Officer at Skillsoft. Lindsey, great to have you on this panel discussion. I'm sure you've done a ton of work in this area. If you can briefly share your introduction and also tell us why this topic is close to your heart.
Thanks for having me. It's a privilege and an honor to be on with all of you today. In general, I lead strategy for Skillsoft, as Shrikant said, and Skillsoft is the world's one of the world's largest learning providers, focusing on leadership and business skills, technology and developer skills, and compliance skills. So the entire range. And as we'll talk about today, the ways that we're thinking about going about those and building those skills is changing rapidly and in exciting ways, especially through partnerships with Harbinger. Personally, I've been in the education world for a couple of decades. I started out in K-12 learning in the US, ended up ultimately at McKinsey & Company for a long time, really thinking about how transformation happens, and then was able to get back to the adult education, workforce learning world, and have been at Skillsoft for about 2 years now.
Thanks, Lindsey, and look forward to you sharing various perspectives, of this AI-led transformation within your span at Skillsoft, and you have a wide 20-year experience. So I think that will be good to understand how you see things in the future. That brings me to welcome our second panelist, Poonam Jaypuriya, a VP of eLearning at Harbinger Group. Poonam, if you could introduce yourself and share what's so exciting about this particular topic.
Sure. Thank you, first of all, Shrikant, for having me on this panel. And it's a pleasure to share the platform with Lindsey. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a part of Harbinger Group, and in my career over here for last 2 decades, I have played multiple roles, right from being a programmer myself to, leading multiple e-learning products and innovating them, launching them in the market. And then over last decade or so, I've worked very closely with multiple online learning businesses to help them design strategies and learning solutions to scale up their content development processes. So that was a little about me. To talk about what interests me on this topic, Shrikant, it's exciting times for all of us. What we are witnessing is not just a simple technology evolution, like we all have seen many of those in the past, but this is a fundamental shift in how we are looking at designing, delivering, or even consuming learning for that matter. I think your World Economic Forum report was very clear and very encouraging and motivating to see the workforce transition and how new opportunities would be created in coming years. What I have seen is that AI is really giving us new ways to personalize learning content or define new ways of designing content. And in fact, the role of instructional designer changes in this whole place. And that's what personally excites me a lot. So, and like I said, my passion is in helping businesses to navigate such a transition effectively. So excited to be here today. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Poonam. I think both of you have kind of different experiences and background, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspectives on the various questions that we have. And of course, some of them that will come from audience as well, which we'll pick towards the later part. So let me just dive in to our first question. And Lindsey, to you, how are the digital learning providers, since we assume Skillsoft is one of the leading ones in that domain, adapting to this major shift in learning and development? This is everybody's talking about this change. So how have you or the team or industry seeing this?
Yeah, thanks, Shrikant. And I realize I didn't fully answer your last question, so I'm going to combine where my passion and interest comes for this and how that intersects actually with what Skillsoft is doing. So the thing that makes me the most passionate about this and most interested is that I continue to believe that if we can scale phenomenal learning experiences, of which digital is obviously the best way to scale that, we can change the world. If you can build skills and empower people to get the right skills, the right time, the right way, and they can do their jobs in a fundamentally different way and drive value for themselves and their organizations. And I think this is an incredibly exciting moment to leverage what's happening in technology to make that possible. How Skillsoft is seeing that is in a couple of ways. So one is that we are really starting to think about, but we are very clearly organizing how we think about this into what the learner's trajectory is through their career and what they need, and the organization's trajectory through their broad talent lifecycle management and what they need and how those intersect, as opposed to just the learning moment that happens for an HR organization. We really want to take an ecosystem view. And so as part of thinking about that broad ecosystem view and the amount of assembly that's required for an individual learner or for an organization across processes, technology, groups of people, vendors, we affectionately call it a spaghetti mess if you try to map it out.
Yeah.
And so what we're really thinking about is what makes it easier for our customers to actually deliver the right skills to the right people, the right time, the right way, in a way that increases value. And as we've looked at that and asked ourselves that question, given the skilling imperative, but also the maturation of the skilling revolution. So this skills as a real traceable atomic unit is starting to be possible. How you build those, the technology, generative AI, and how that's changing our ability to generate incredibly high quality learning experiences in a different way, which may then be able to take personalization to the next level, and to think about how all of that can flow through the system we're stepping back and saying we need to be a talent development partner and think about not just providing phenomenal learning experiences, but that we need to think about how those are dynamic and also how they intersect with the rest of the ecosystem and how they have a platform and technology and process element to them that makes it possible for the organization or the learner to really have a through line to their talent management, their individual career management.
That's a very interesting point, Lindsey, that you're looking not just at creating learning experiences, but thinking about the talent transformation, the talent development partner. I think that definitely creates a new way of thinking about the whole how you go about delivering or building the product, or creating those experiences.
And digital learning experiences are still at the heart of it, but we start at all of the pieces that are connected. Our skills, an integral part of everything that we're doing. What is the technology and how much are you having to weave together? Who are our most important ecosystem partners that allow for that easy construction, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think thanks for sharing that perspective. Poonam, question to you again. What's from your vantage point the major shifts that you are seeing when it comes to digital learning providers?
Sure, Shrikant. So first of all, it's an interesting question because everyone is thinking about the shifts in L&D. So what I personally think is this whole idea of having a static course, which will slowly become irrelevant. What learners would not look forward is just taking a course and, getting a certificate at the end, but use AI in various forms to learn, and where these content snippets or the course packages become a supporting or a reinforcement material for those learners. So the digital learning leaders have already started asking some key strategic questions, such as how is AI changing their business model, which was set for last 20 years or so, or what are some new ways they can create value for their customers, or what are some new roles of the workforce, and how AI agents can help them in those tasks and so on. So there are some many interesting questions the learning leaders are asking. What's interesting is also to start thinking of how a static course catalog can be converted to a dynamic AI-powered learning ecosystem, like what Lindsey was just talking about. So, and it's interesting is technology and content together can play a very interesting role in making that happen because of the scale we are talking about. So, for example, there are some trends which I'm seeing, which people are looking at, like, how can I create content using AI? I think many of us have tried that, a hands-on or POCs last year, and it continues even this year. But then how do we reduce a little bit of SME dependency, but generate high quality content, create learning pathways, dynamic experiences, which are beyond assessments and, simple interactions. So what I'm seeing is there are 4 aspects of learning which someone should start thinking about. One is personalization of content, learner engagement in newer ways, automation on how the learning can be delivered, and at the fourth and most important one is human and AI collaboration, rather than thinking just AI at the end of it. So those are few things which I'm seeing as trends when it comes to scaling content.
Makes sense. And Poonam, between these 4, is there like something like a more higher priority for today than later? Like this human and AI collaboration, is it today, or it's like future personalization comes before? Any such?
Again, based on my conversations with the customer, Shrikant, I think people have different priorities. But of course, the human AI collaboration probably comes first because of the content development process is where we are starting with. But very soon, the providers will move quickly towards the next level of maturity where it will start be getting into more engagement and of course eventually personalization. So if you ask me, maybe human AI and automation kind of go hand in hand a little, then learner engagement and personalization. Maybe I would prioritize it that way.
Good to get that priority from you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, moving to keep our discussion moving, I think the next question, Lindsey, I would like to pose to you is, we've talked about this role-based and how important is skill-based learning and kind of upskilling for uh, for all organizations, right? So how are learning platforms transforming, or if are they transforming, looking to transform to enable organizations to be able to do this effectively? Any tips you have or any suggestions you have?
Yes. So we're seeing a ton of exciting transformation and a real jump to continue much deeper learning experiences, but also again, right, more and more work in order to get the right skills to the right people, the right time, the right way. With the platform role in that, and it's part of what we've started to realize and why we're thinking differently about how we invest in our platform, Percipio, is that the highest quality learning experience, especially digital, has a really major technology component to it. And there are a few different elements of that. So is the platform leveraging the metadata in the right way? Is it connected into the skill taxonomy the right way so that instead of a broad role, you're getting at more of the individual learner profile if you can start to understand those things? And then the best platforms, and we'll endeavor to do this, are also thinking about with this personalization, what does that personalization mean? How do you start to build not just great skill building within the context of your existing job, but how do you do that within the context of your career? And how do you do that in the context of what the company is interested in for its workforce and how it is shifting? Now, none of those are new ideas at all, but the ability to actually do those and have the skill as the traceable atomic unit in the system connected to that role and skill and your systems of record in the HRIS systems and your performance management systems, that is very, very challenging to do right now, and is something that I think learning platforms are realizing they're not on an island. We're certainly making sure that ours is not on an island. How do we participate in that ecosystem? And then the learning is dramatically more powerful if it is more relevant in that point. So one big theme is that skills and the connectivity in the ecosystem. I think the second piece is the quality of the learning. So how do we move from roles to skills? How are you actually building those skills? To actually shift behavior is incredibly challenging, as this group definitely knows. So the ability to get to high quality pedagogical experiences digitally, two-dimensionally, is very challenging. And so I think the more that learning platforms have the ability to serve up interactive learning experiences, something we've also invested a lot in and are getting to partner with you on, but we've introduced over a year ago the Casey, a conversational AI simulator, in this level of kind of interactivity, so that the assessment and the applied learning are starting to kind of be able to blend again the way that they would in real life. And I think platforms being able to serve up and again have that feedback flow with that metadata on those learning experiences is another really key part of how they're progressing.
Yeah, those are great points. And one of the things you mentioned a couple of times, the challenges. So from a challenges perspective, is it more challenging the skills thing because there's no standard across these things? Are there any standards coming up, or organizations need to create their own versions of it and use the platforms in the best way to document them or to build it?
So It's a great question. I think that there are standards out there, but there are multiple standards, and therefore there's not actually a standard. So I think different organizations are dealing with it in different ways, but I think over the next year and a half, we'll see a convergence on a few. One is most organizations, I think, are either adopting a skill taxonomy. There are several out there from ONET to Lightcast to a few others, or they're building their own for their own role and job architecture and kind of building backwards. What I think my bold prediction on how this all works and the way the platforms need to work is that we probably aren't going to get to a skill skew, so to speak. Like there's not going to be an analogy of it. Instead, what we need is a kind of Rosetta Stone, and a good platform will have that Rosetta Stone, will have their skill taxonomy that they're constantly updating, and the ability to talk to whatever the skill taxonomy is of that organization so that it is traceable across the systems.
I have more questions for you on that, but I think
there's a lot there. It's a whole little cottage industry on that one, so to speak. But yes, we can dig in.
Bring Poonam in on the next question. Poonam, you build a variety of kind of content libraries and at different levels and with different organizations. With AI, what changes are you seeing in terms of this whole learning content creation, the delivery and the consumption? I know there's kind of too many parts to it, but if there is anything specific that's close to your heart and you want to dig deep in and share your experience there, that'll be interesting for the audience.
Absolutely, Shrikant. One of my favorite questions. So thank you for asking me this one. So what's interesting is whether someone is involved in a bespoke learning content, like, just few custom courses or a huge online content library. I think the AI-based content development process is impacting everyone. So whether, and not just content creation, but even delivery. And like I was saying, even from a learner consumption perspective, learner content consumption perspective as well, things are undergoing major transformation. So maybe I'll take all the three sections for a minute. So from a content creation perspective, what I'm seeing is, of course, AI has accelerated the content development process. And what used to take us probably months now takes probably a couple of days or few days to make that happen, right from content creation to learning assets to assembling the course together. So, and also AI has matured in last, 12 to 18 months, which has gone beyond text today to multimodal content generation, videos, simulations, scenarios. Lindsey was just talking about Casey, which is an amazing AI simulator tool creating different scenarios. So what it's doing is for L&D, it's making them rethink of the entire process, the systems and the tools they are using for content development. Another aspect I would suggest is what I'm seeing is people should start looking at their existing content, which is a big vast asset they have today with them, and how that content, and the good thing is it's already instructionally sound, checked by instructional designers and SMEs and all. So it's a very good value content, and how can that be modernized into newer formats and solutions with AI? And the good thing is AI can handle volume of content and, can produce it in many interesting ways. So that's one suggestion I would have for, the L&D team members here. When it comes to content delivery, I think what even Lindsey was talking about is the personalization, not just in terms of how the content is delivered, but also based on the learner profiles and skill sets. How do we adapt that content to them? So even what I have seen is even at Harbinger, we are like a 800 people team, and we have a lot of learners going through a continuous learning process, there are many people who are now looking for a non-linear career progression. And so they want to acquire newer skills through either certifications or micro credentials so that they can do more in their day-to-day work. So reskilling, upskilling is a big part of L&D focus today. And how can they be mapped to a skill in a certain controlled environment? That's what the L&D is looking for today. So how do the content platforms evolve to make such delivery happen? And how can AI be leveraged beyond chatbots, like a tutor or a coach or a role-playing bot or, my buddy? There are many different ways AI can be designed and created to make that delivery happen. So that's where I would suggest, what I'm seeing on the content delivery front. And when it comes to content consumption, I like to just narrate an example. So for one of our quick service restaurant customer, they had like a ton of content about processes, policies, product creation and all. And they had a huge time for onboarding a new employee to make that go through that whole training program. What we did was to call that content and made an AI model which would know all of it, and simply created an AI assistant bot for them, where the learner could interact through chat or voice, even in their native languages like Spanish, and they could simply ask the questions and get pinpointed answers to continue with their job, or just in time, responses. So the content consumption can be again thought through in many interesting ways to make it happen. So those are my few thoughts on, how content can be created, delivered, or consumed using AI.
Great examples, Poonam. I kind of, I'll keep that bot thing in mind. Now, one thing which many people have questions about is, of course, AI can do things faster. Is it, and you, if earlier it was taking months to build it, what's realistic? Should we think that it'll be done in days? Is that really true, or it'll take a little bit longer? Or answer is somewhere in between.
Yes. Lindsey, go ahead.
I think we don't know
We don't-
short term, though I also think it depends on the learning experience. So part of what we're seeing is the ability, we're trying to start small to manage the quality of it and to focus heavily on interactivity. And so what that's meant is that we can start to isolate and do within an hour what used to take 2 days. So there's a sort of ratio that's happening with each type of learning experience. So for us now to build a KC scenario, and then is a significantly shorter period of time, is within a few hours as opposed to a week of a team. And so that's also the number of people that it takes, and the amount of time. But that should be contextualized in the larger learning experience. And so one point that I might take a second to make here that I think is important, especially for this group, is that this is such an interesting kind of curve of how technology evolves and the human interaction in it. What I actually see happening with customers, and especially with learning and development, instructional design teams, is that yes, in some ways, for a unit of work, it is reducing the amount of time, but we were only scratching the surface on what the potential of great learning experiences, especially digital learning experiences, can do. So suddenly the body of work that's available to do now is so much greater. So in some ways, it's shrinking the amount of time to do what we were doing, but it's opening up the door to all sorts of other things we can do. So the scenarios, instead of a ton of interactive scenarios that we've put online and thought a lot about what those templates are and how those should be, well, now we can think about, well, how could someone customize that last mile of it? And what does that look like for that geography or that team or that industry? And then suddenly, like that wouldn't have been possible before because to develop a scenario, a single scenario took so much, but now you can develop that level. And then how do you follow up on those in a continual way so that the learning is scaffolded over time and you're actually assessing the growth in skills through more than just a knowledge check? That's a whole other level of development and tracking that takes a bunch of people. So I don't know that I'm quite answering this question yet, but I think it's important that there's a very understandable element also of fear here when we start to talk about AI, balancing the opportunity and do our roles go away. And my perspective and Skillsoft's perspective is actually that this is an incredibly human moment, that this is about opening up the promise of what great education is that we just frankly didn't have the time and tools to do before.
Sorry, well, as you were answering, I thought about this particular question, which was my next question. So I thought, I should bring it up and not stop you from, thinking about this part as well. So, we are all from time that, you'd create a library of courses and say that it'll continue for next 10 years, 15 years, and people will be consuming that. But the future probably is not that. So, so you're going to produce content that is going to be only relevant for 3 months or 6 months. So, and we are saying that we develop that at great speeds, but still you have to have some amount of quality in it. So
yeah,
we cannot invest so much so that because these libraries are going to become not so relevant in 3, 6 months or 12 months. Their lifetime is short. So how do we balance all this as businesses? I mean, what's your thought on how this is going to evolve?
So I think it comes down to the same old things: people, processes, technology.
Mm-hmm.
I think technology starts to shift, and what's great about these agentic tools is you can embed high quality instructional design into them. It doesn't do all of it, but it allows it to scale and puts a lot of guardrails around it. The tool that Skillsoft is building called the LX Design Studio will allow an everyday user to ultimately develop an end-to-end learning experience that is in line with some sort of instructional design framework and build simulations and all of these pieces to it. We don't necessarily want an everyday user, though, to be publishing all of that. There's still, is it relevant? Is the source information good? Are those learning objectives that match? Did the skills get tagged correctly to flow through the system? There are a number of other things. So there's a layer on top of that needs to kind of assess and check it. And that's where we start to get to the processes and the people. And so the shift to maintain quality and still accelerate speed. I think there are tools like this LX Design Studio, but then the processes and guardrails that are set up, get very meta on it, the learning on the learning tools has to take place, and the empowerment to embed the true role of coaching and learning for managers, for SMEs, and building some of that content is there. It's part of the people piece, and then the processes around knowing who can publish that and the life cycle management of that content so that it is out in the world as long as it is relevant, and the ability to check that. I don't have a great answer on that one yet. I think the life cycle management will be an interesting challenge that we need to tackle soon, but people, processes, technology, and thinking about what those tools are, but not just tools in and of themselves. They need the processes and guardrails, and they need the people who really understand how to use them and how to make the most of them.
That's an interesting way of putting and thinking about that life cycle question of context. So thank you for sharing that perspective. I have one more question for you that is kind of, would be probably interesting. And that's on this particular topic about, we shared we're talking more learners and, platform companies, but there are a ton of us who are actually learning professionals. So what's the role change that, and you alluded to a little bit of that, like, there are new tools coming up, new things coming up. So how is AI impacting the role of learning professionals in this whole new content production world? How are you seeing it?
So at a very basic level, I believe that it is empowering learning professionals to, in many ways, expand their role. But it will move, in general, it will move the field, this field of people from being executors to being more of business partners and more of strategists. And so it's about setting up and managing these learning systems and the evolution and growth of skills and whether they're working, whether people, the processes and people element of it are working, and rather than being content creators.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Poonam, anything you have in terms of you interact and talk to a lot of learning professionals, right?
Right. Yeah, so it's an interesting question, Shrikant, and many people are discussing and debating what's really going to happen with instructional designers, learning professionals, and all. And maybe I can take an example of other technology disruption which happened probably a few years back and see if that relates with us. So in early 1900s, when the cars went through a major, car manufacturing went through a major technology disruption, and the cars were started producing faster, like from years it came down to months. People felt that now cars will become, very cheap, and, will almost become a commodity and so on. But actually did not. Even today, cars are quite expensive. So what really changed was the people started envisioning cars differently and tried to do new things and experiencing cars differently. And that's what added value in, what they delivered. I think that's what I feel we will all are going through. What we all have been doing for last decade or so, probably in next 2 years itself, we will not be doing the same thing. And that's probably definitely going to reduce. But then are we going to do the same learning design, same learning experiences, or probably there is new ways of learning and to be delivered. And that's where the value now is. And we all will go through that transition and experience it together. That's how I would probably see us evolving and contributing in different ways.
Yeah, the level of skill probably is going to, change or require some new way of doing it. So this whole empowering way that Lindsey talked about,
Yeah.
this is only going to empower them to think and do things
Things very differently. Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense. So thank you, both of you, for sharing your perspective on that. I'm sure many people in the audience would be wondering as to what it means for them. Coming up to the last segment of our conversation today, Poonam, starting with you, what are the most exciting AI innovations in the digital learning space? Maybe some that you're doing, some you've seen in the industry, whatever you think is
Sure. Yeah. So again, there are a lot of things changing, like I said already, right from creation to delivery to consumption. But then there are two particular innovations which I'm personally very interested and I'm watching them. One is how is this whole learning going to change the new learning strategies and the solutions, like I was just talking about? How would we change as learning professionals and how do we deliver those new learning experiences? And again, I'll go back to what Lindsey just talked about, Casey. I've seen the Casey product and it's amazing in the way, people can use that as a practice simulator environment to practice crucial conversations and so on. So I can see the value of a true learning partner through AI coming through Casey. So what are more such new solutions which will be out there in next few years? That's something I'm watching out for. And the other piece is agentic AI. what I have seen is if it's really well designed and implemented, it can really transform the way L&D can contribute to the business. So AI-powered learning agents and how they can play an interactive role in designing the learners and their learning experiences is something I would love to watch and see how it grows. So I was recently, my daughter was going through Khan Academy, and I was seeing how she is using Khan Migo, which is almost like an AI coach, an agentic AI coach, which is guiding the learner through complex problem solving. And it almost mimics a real human tutor sitting next to me while solving those problems. So there are many interesting things coming up in agentic AI, and that's another piece I'm really excited about.
Great points, Poonam, Casey, and agentic AI. And I think we should all look up those examples and follow that. Uh, Coming to you, Lindsey, what are the innovations that you are tracking, and anything that you would like to share with all of us here today?
Yes, I couldn't agree more on interactive learning generally. So I think it's going from 2D to 3D, and it's a very exciting moment in many different ways. Taking it kind of to the next horizon, kind of like Hanmigo, we're starting to track this notion of learning agents. So as you have something like Copilot that can see the background of everything that you're doing and serve up suggestions that are very use case specific to your flow of work, and or able to recall and pull information together for you. I think it's very exciting to start thinking about how, and this would be a platform innovation, how your learner profile can get pulled into that, can match up with those productivity tools so that you're starting to get the right hints at the right time, and you eventually end up with that sort of personalized learning agent. I think we're several years away from that because of all of the privacy concerns and the basics of just which companies can develop what, and then and then be able to build the right integrations. But it's a really exciting thing because what it ultimately does for all of us who care so much about learning is that it scales a personalized tutor and teacher who understands your context, understands the skill set you need to build, and understands your own interests and aptitudes, and can match that with that. And it suddenly we are able to scale great coaching, great tutoring, all of those pieces. So if I'm going really far into the future, that's where I would go.
Yeah, sounds very fascinating, and sounds like, there's tons of opportunities to do new things. And if we started the discussion over, or jobs are getting affected and how we're going to do, looks like there's a lot of things for us to do to really make and create these experiences for learners. I mean, but it has to be done in new and innovative ways.
Yeah.
Not be done.
There's so much about how it's done and then what the actual learner experience is, and they have to be matched together.
So yeah, I think we've had great points and great discussions. We'll quickly come to the Q&A from team as well. So, but before that, let me just try and quickly summarize our discussion today. I think the topic is very broad, so we obviously could not dive into all the nitty-gritties of how AI is redefining the digital learning business. But the fact is that it is already started disrupting it. And if we make the right moves, whether you are a learning professional or a service provider or a platform company, you can scale smartly in this new era. Some important things that I captured from the discussion and points was, learning experiences are going to transform, and new learning experiences are going to be interactive, but different kinds of interactions are going to be important. But at the same time, the whole focus on skilling and talent development as a whole, and connecting those learning experiences is going to be very important. We will also have to do, this whole human AI collaboration and personalization again is going to play an important role. We also at the same time have to watch a lot of emerging tech and how we can leverage that. Some of it, we building it. Some of it coming from other companies that are innovating in this space. And overall, it's going to be change for everybody, whether you are developing content, whether your way of consuming learning, or you are kind of managing the whole ecosystem. So and as professionals in this domain, irrespective of where you are, you need to be able to move ahead with some of these tools and technologies. That's what I think both Lindsey and Poonam emphasized on. And it's an opportunity, and if we keep pace with it, then we can all scale and build future learning experiences and deliver that to our customers. On that note, a quick brief about Harbinger. At Harbinger, our mission is to transform the way people work and learn, and we build software technology in the human resource, learning, and digital publishing and high-tech domains. We also build a lot of content, e-learning content, courses, libraries, both proprietary as well as using platforms that our partners like Skillsoft have designed, and help our customers transform their digital learning experiences. We've been in business for about 30 years now, and look forward to transforming the learning business in this AI-led world in the future, and bringing new solutions and services to the market. So yeah, thank you once again. But we are now open for questions. Thanks, Lindsey and Poonam, for staying and patiently answering all my questions. I know some of them, you didn't get enough time to probably share all your thoughts, but it was wonderful. I have some questions here that have come up on the chat, so maybe I'll post a few that we can attempt. So one of the questions is that on the topic of using AI for content creation, can you clarify how AI is specifically accelerating this process? This is from Jenny, and she further adds, in my experience, AI has been helpful in speeding up copywriting, but the design aspect still feels largely manual. Do you have insights on how others are leveraging AI for course design? So, Poonam, Lindsey?
I can give a quick answer and turn it over. I think the shortest answer to that is that generic AI, ChatGPT, Gemini is very difficult and clunky for doing great instructional design. It actually requires a very tuned tool set to be able to develop it in a high quality way. And the good tools will break it down into a design process where it's thinking about what the intention, what pedagogical approach you want to use, what the learning objectives are, what the skills are, what the proficiency levels, what the amount of time is, all of those pieces, and then what you want the elements to be of the course, and then take you through that. And there are tools that are doing a basic job of that, and some that are increasingly sophisticated in doing that.
So it's not like there's if you use some of these LLM tools, you may not get a perfect response, but if there are technologies that are built on top of it, which is specific for learning design and curriculum design and stuff like that, you probably can get more out of it. So yeah,
Exactly.
it makes a lot of sense. One more question that has come up is, how can learning providers introduce AI in learning solutions in small ways before making a big commitment? So this is an interesting point. Do you need to go all in for AI, or you can make these small incremental things? Because it's a huge investment if you're a technology or a content company. Poonam, any thoughts you want to share on that?
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. Before making a big commitment, it's important to first start small. What I have seen customers doing at our end is either doing small POCs or MVPs to start with. And rather than finding one solution which can fit everyone and through the entire process, start small with one piece of, section, like what the question earlier was. Can I just start with content writing and see how it works, and design and see how it works? Starting small in certain pockets, trying it out, and then putting the entire process or solution together. That's usually what I have seen people it works. Also, there is no one tool which fits all. So I know we are reading a lot of reviews which says, oh, this is a great tool or that's a better tool. To be honest, the tool really can work only based on how it has been trained and how it is designed for your industry or your setup. So from that perspective, do try it out, do experience it yourself, and then see what really works best for you. So those are a few things I would suggest, starting small, and then of course connecting it all together to make a bigger commitment.
It's
And one idea to build on that is the tool itself, but you can also think about which modality. So you don't even have to start small with a POC on an end-to-end course. You could
Exactly.
start on introducing scenarios in, or introducing more dynamically developed assessments based on your content or things like that. So you break it up in different ways that way.
those are great points. I have a couple of questions from Kirby here, and they're interesting ones. Maybe we'll not be able to cover both, but I'll ask one of them. I'm curious if you're seeing reduced need for instructional designers who are working with technical SMEs to create courses, learning solutions, etc. Since a single AI savvy person can generally create much more, much faster, even with increased demand for learning experiences, couldn't one savvy person replace the entire department? So, like,
I will just, this is sort of what I was alluding to before. Yes, if we believe that what we have done in learning so far is complete and great. What I think Poonam said beautifully before is we're in horse and buggy land in learning, and we're going to go to cars. And we don't fully understand what that is yet, but that is true. But I think this is about those tools unlocking the potential of all of those people to not just be executing on the learning design, but really thinking much more deeply about the personalization, the range of learning experiences that could now be delivered, et cetera. Poonam, please build.
So in a way, what I've also heard is, that what you call a traditional instructional designer might be different in future. Same thing with some of the other things. So it's hard
Content.
to believe that one person can do everybody's job and rest all, AI will do it. But we need to see how things develop. But I think the job roles and stuff like that might change as we go forward. Additional question that Kirby has was mostly hypothetical. He's saying, imagine 10 years and if Gen AI fails, unhappy learners was outcomes. What would be the major missteps we in the learning and development space would have made to contribute to that? So I think that's a very difficult question, but if anybody wants to take that, are there chances that this whole shift might we look back and say that, oh, it was just a hype and it kind of went away and we are back to where we were. So is that a possibility? I mean, or we think that it's got potential and it may not be 100% where what people are claiming, but definitely not going back to where we were before. What's any thoughts on that?
Yeah, maybe I can share a line and then Lindsey, please add. So first of all, Shrikant, I agree. I don't think there's a looking back from here where we are today. But yeah, at the same time, things can go wrong, in the way aggressively or the way we'll design. One thing which I feel we should be very watchful about as custodians of learning is while AI will do a lot of things and help us do more, having that checks and balances in place to ensure quality of the content versus just depending on AI to say, you know what, give me an answer, I got it, and I've created a course out of it, versus ensuring that it actually makes the learning happen. That's the value we should not lose while we rapidly scale up the content production.
Thanks, Poonam, for that perspective. So well, we're at the top of the hour, so I think that's all we can take right now in terms of questions, but we are happy to look at all the chat and the conversations, and we will post those answers online, as a part when we publish the recording. So once again, thanks, Lindsey and Poonam, for being, wonderful panelists and answering all these questions. I think what we got in the chat were even more interesting and, thoughtful as well. So thanks to all the attendees for challenging us and bringing in different perspectives of how this AI-led transformation is happening in the digital publishing world. So thanks for that, and all of you have a great day and a great evening or afternoon wherever you are, and see you soon.
Thank you, Shrikant, and thank you, audience.
Thank you so much for having me. I always learn from talking to both of you, and this is definitely no exception. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Lindsey.
Thank you.